So good morning, I'm here in the Hampshire countryside and I am at a church that I've wanted to visit for years and never managed to do so, which is the church at Stoke Charity, a very, very special church indeed. I'm just outside on the south side. Now it doesn't look like very much really, just a very simple church. On this side, two cells, nave and chancel, with a nice shingled spire. But inside this building is an absolute treasure house. So let's have a wander in down the path. So we pass some very, very nice 18th century table tombs here. They are very fine. Down the path, Victorian porch. Looking at a 13th, 14th century fabric on the outside. Appears to be a 13th century chancel, a couple of lancets, and a very late 13th century nave window there. Early 14th century probably. Here we come through. Yeah, it looks to be a 14th century door. Lots of graffiti on this door. Tremendous amount. Some of it dated to the 17th century, 1693, 1698. Graffiti really is fascinating. Okay, let's push the door open and get that initial glimpse. To say it an ooh and an ah when I came in earlier, it really is a splendid building. Look at that. Ah. Right, we step down into it. There are tombs and tombs and tombs galore here. Let's step down into the nave. It's quite a step down. Close the door. And the first thing that faces us on this north side is a 12th century arcade. So it appears that it's a 12th century structure. The windows are just a decoy, often they are. And there's a nice 12th century chancel arch as well. So mostly a 12th century structure. Now I'm heading up towards the chancel. Let's go into the chancel. And on the north side of the chancel is all of this. It's a 15th century arch to a north chapel, which is the chapel of the Hampton family. And their successors, the Wallers and the Phillips, their descendants. Now, the chapel appears to have been constructed on an earlier chapel site, sometime at the end of the 15th century. And in the position of honour between the high altar and the chapel is this table tomb here, commemorating Thomas Hampton, Esquire, and his wife Isabella. Sadly, most of Isabella's brass is gone, but you can tell by the indent that she had a butterfly headdress on. The inscription on it reads, Hic jacent Thomas Hampton Armiger, here lies Thomas Hampton Armiger, et Isabella uxor eos. And Thomas died on the feast of St Simon and St Jude in 1483. Which is interesting putting it that way. And his wife Isabella died on the feast of St Andrew in 1475. The brass probably dates from about 1475, I would have thought. And down at the bottom there are their children, 2 sons and 6 daughters. And at the top above their head is a figure of the Holy Trinity. And the little speech bubbles inscriptions are invocations to the Holy Trinity. So I can't read this, it's upside down. Let's come round and into this chapel now. Thomas Hampton is almost certainly the founder of this little chapel here, given the position of the tomb. It is the prestige position within the church building. His His scroll says, Pater de Caelis, Deus miserere nobis, Father of heaven, have mercy on me. And Isabella's inscription says, Sancta Trinitas, unum Deum, have mercy on me. Holy Trinity, one God, have mercy on me, with the little Trinity image above. So he's the founder of this chapel. Now, of all their children, only one daughter survived into adulthood, and that was Joan. And she married a man called John Waller, whose tomb is this. Well, the colourful monument here, the lovely heraldic display, fabulous inscription. So he and her are buried here. She was Hampton's heiress in the second most prestigious position within this chapel. A chapel that's believed to have been dedicated to St Thomas of Canterbury. And down on the floor is their son, Richard Waller, who died in 1552. It's a little brass. Now their descendants were of the Phillips family, and that's the next monument here. It's a lovely classical monument to them. And there are other monuments on the floor as well, some of which have lost their brasses. Quite a few, in fact. And the remains of the lovely medieval tiled pavement that was once in here. There's quite a lot of medieval tiles. So there was clearly a chapel here before Thomas Hampton rebuilt it, because on the wall just next to his tomb is this fragment of a 13th century wall painting. And if we spin around, on the west end is a little Norman arch. So there was a Norman, extraordinary, a Norman side chapel or aisle here attached to the north side of the chancel. Now, the pièce de résistance in this chapel is here in the corner. Hope you can see this properly. And it's a 15th century sculpture of the Mass of St Gregory. I'm just going to move around because I think there's a little bit of glare. It might be difficult to avoid the glare. There you can see Pope St Gregory celebrating Mass. I'll do a video about the Mass of St Gregory because the origins of it are really, really fascinating. The legend is that St Gregory is celebrating Mass, and there was a woman in his at Mass who did not believe in the real presence of Christ. So St Gregory prayed to Christ, and the host in his hand turned into a finger. However, by the late Middle Ages, the tradition had evolved to the point where the whole of Christ appeared as an apparition on the altar. And there we see Christ, the man of sorrows, bearing his wounds, standing on the altar as Gregory celebrates Mass. This is such a rare survival, and it survived by being used as a building stone in the fabric after the Reformation. Now, if I come round here and give you a view, I think you get less glare. So that is very, very special indeed, the Mass of St Gregory. A 15th century sculpture, a wonderful rustic quality to it, as a lot of 15th century work does have. Now, in the windows here, there's also bits of medieval glass. Some of the original 15th century glass of the chapel. In the centre, very beautiful image of the Mother of God, holding the Christ child. There she is, Our Lady. These glazing bars do not help. They go right across the faces. I think you can probably see that. Quite a lot of pitting, and down the edges there's borders of Sons and Splendour, which was a badge associated with Edward IV, which may suggest that the Hamptons were Yorkists during the Wars of the Roses. Another image of a sainted, a female saint. And if we come to the other side there is what appears to be the remains of a figure of St Christopher carrying the Christ child. All that survives really is the figure of the Christ child. So very splendid bits of 15th century glass here. And if I whiz round, there's a few scraps of that in the east window of the chapel behind the altar. The original altar slab, incidentally, is here too. It's under the little holy table. There it is. The altar of St Thomas of Canterbury. Right at the top here, I don't know if you can see this, maybe you can, if I zoom in, is the head of Christ. So what this was, I do not know. And a few more scraps of Sons in Splendour. And there's quite a few steps here, so excuse me as I come down. And then above us is the original 15th century ceiling, which is very simple, but really rather nice. So it is a fantastic space, this. So this is the Hampton Chapel on the north side of Stoke Charity Church. Now, we're not done yet, I'm afraid. There's still more to see. So we come back into the chancel again. There's a 15th century canopy, image bracket canopy. There, you can see there's a squint here. We're coming into the nave. So there is evidently an altar in this position here because you've got a double squint that gives you a view of the altar of St Thomas of Canterbury in the Hampton Chapel and also a view of the high altar. And next to it are a couple more table tombs made of Purbeck marble. So really expensive commissions. And this one particularly, this Purbeck marble altar tomb, raised up in a prime position in the nave, right up against that, where that side altar would have been. And there's a lower one with a Purbeck slab below. A quick view into the Hampton Chapel with that Norman arch. But we don't know whose they were. There's nothing on there to indicate who they were. But there is one more table tomb in this church, which is very interesting indeed. So it's on the south side of the nave, where there probably was another altar, I suspect. And this has a brass upon it. And here it is. A man in armour, almost identical to Thomas Hampton in form. And it says, Hic jacet, here lies Thomas Waite, Esquire. Here lies Thomas Waite, Esquire, who died on the 10th day of April in the year of our Lord, 1482. So 1482. And above him is an image of the Man of Sorrows with Christ rising from the tomb. And a little inscription scroll, Jesus Filii Dei, Jesus Son of God, miserere mei, have mercy on me. Jesus Son of God, have mercy on me. Really is a thing to behold. So, quite a group of monuments in this church. We're not finished, I'm afraid. Goodness, this is going to be a 20-minute video at the rate we're going off. So we've got the Man of Sorrows on Thomas Waite's tomb, almost directly opposite here. The Man of Sorrows on that sculpture of the Mass of St Gregory in the Hampton Chapel. So lovely capitals carved on the late Norman chancel arch here. There's a blocked doorway up there with a 15th century head, which is presumably to the reed loft. Now, the Phillips family, who succeeded the Wallers and the Hamptons, clearly ran out of space in the chapel there. So they purloin the west end of the North Nave aisle as their burial place. And there are a few more monuments here. So here lieth the body of the Honourable Sir James Phillips, Baronet, who deceased the 28th day of October 1652. So he was a royalist during the Civil War, incidentally, so I understand. And on either side are two more monuments. So we have Charity Ogle, the heiress of William Waller, and she married Sir Thomas Phillips. That's how the property came into the Phillips family. And on the other side, Elizabeth Phillips, the relict of Sir James Phillips, Baronet, who died in 1693. So if I remember, so I'm remembering all this off the top of my head, that large monument in the Hampton Chapel, I think we'll finish in the Hampton Chapel because it is by far the most delightful space in this church. If I remember, this large monument here is to the Ogle family. So the Hamptons, Thomas Hampton, gave way to the Wallers, their descendants, and in turn to the Ogles and the Phillips. And there is no sign left of the house they lived in. It has vanished entirely. So there you go. This is Stoke Charity Church in Hampshire. Really is a treasure house of a building. And I'm going to leave you now with one last view. I think this is the view of the church. I have to say, the best view in this building into the Hampton Chapel with its monuments and its beautiful sculpture of the Mass of St Gregory and its medieval glass. It's a view that has little changed since the 16th century. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Now I want to tell you very briefly about another new initiative I've got on the go at the moment. I've just launched my own magazine. It's called The Antiquary. The content reflects what you get on this YouTube channel. It's antiquarian miscellany, really, which is beautifully and copiously illustrated.